I think it takes a lot of balls to write a manga. Like, the workload involved is already just overwhelming to the average human being, but to go out of your way and to write a manga that not only blows up out of a meme and continues to just grow better and better, but to continue to evolve that story further and further and further and push the limits of it. And that's just straight up peak fucking fiction. And Kagurabachi just seemingly pushed the boat out even further and killed the main character. So let's talk about it.
Sometimes you gotta close the door to open a window.
Now, before we get into this chapter, I just want to point out that Hokuzono has once again treated us to not one, but two colour spreads here. And we're also getting news of an anime for Kagurabachi that is in the works from multiple news sources, which is incredibly fucking exciting right here. Anyways, this chapter is called Blackout, which is ironic because that is exactly what I'm going to do if you don't like and subscribe. I will black out. I will do that. That is emotional manipulation. Anyway, this chapter opens up with the face-off between Chihiro and Samura here, and as always, I can't help but be in awe at the way Hokuzono presents these panels. It is truly like watching a movie play out, like a script, like a storyboard. But seeing Chihiro's eyes slowly become more and more unfocused and unhinged, and him losing his composure, witnessing Samura betray and kill Yoji like this, you can see the mental impact that he has and is having currently on Chihiro. Him starting to stare down and face Samura, the very man that he's known since childhood, who is now responsible for the death of a sword bearer and is now working with the very people who were responsible for killing his dad. And it's pretty easy to understand just why he's upset right now, because obviously he's plagued by all of these memories of his childhood here and everything that he's ever fought for here, only just to find out that this world isn't quite just black and grey. It isn't just black and white. It isn't just clean cut, and so far it seems he's just still a kid. And you have to remember that this is the first time Samura is also seeing the enchanted blade N10, and Hokuzono brings this to focus by showing us Chihiro's face shaking and growing in anger, while from the perspective of Samura, we are showing him with the perspective as if he is only looking at the enchanted blade, serving to sort of hammer home Samura's goals throughout this. Even how he speaks to Chihiro, he seemingly has no interest in giving an explanation to Chihiro, and instead just skips right to telling Chihiro to lay the sword down, until finally Samura cuts down Chihiro. Now, this is where Hokuzono takes a big leap of faith with this series. From this point on, he could go in any direction. Hokuzono is no stranger to killing off his characters within the series. In fact, a major complaint that I have with the series personally so far was how antagonists never seem to just stick around. They actually get cut down quite pretty fast. Sojo, Kiora, both inexperienced wielders of the enchanted blades, but both gave Chihiro a challenging fight. In his fight against Sojo, he lost an arm, and in his fight against Kiora, he needed help from Hiyuki to win it, subtly telling us, you and me, the reader, that these swords, they are no joke, and in the correct hands, they can be a serious threat. And now we're learning just how serious their power and their threat actually is. Again, Samura cutting down Chihiro, he refuses to acknowledge anything that he says and instead tells him he doesn't need to do anything. Now, this is the problem. Again, the panels focus on the blade from the perspective of Samura, again serving to hammer home the objective of Samura here, which is the only concern of the enchanted blades. However, Shiba finally steps in to save Chihiro. Sort of, kind of. And one little detail that I did notice here was the energy left behind from Shiba here. It's made to look like a small lightning bolt to emphasize the speed that Shiba just swooped in. And it's at this moment here that Samura finally starts to address Shiba and Chihiro to some extent, telling Shiba how the Hishaku know of their sins and they intend to tear the lid and bring this country down. And this is, as we're being told all of this, once again we are shown the wielder of the Shinuchi. Again, Hokuzono is really going out of his way to really smack us in the face with the symbolism of this wielder and who he is and what he stands for. And I believe that this was done for two reasons. One, to inform Shiba of the Hishaku's goals somewhat, and two, to inform Shiba that this is the end. And he even mentions that Shiba hasn't told Chihiro and that he's better off not knowing. But we don't know what he's talking about. But I do believe that this is in reference to the death of Chihiro's father, because my theory is that Samura was somehow involved, but I'll get to that in just a second here. But Samura leaves the scene here, and 2 hours later both Yoji and Chihiro are pronounced dead. Now, we already know Yoji was dead because Hirohiko was able to pick up the Kumiyori blade here, but Chihiro dying here and now is completely unexpected, to be honest with you. And so far as we know in the series, healing wounds it's pretty difficult. It's not a series where you just shrug off injuries pretty easily. I mean, look at Hakuri and Chihiro. They have been in a permanent state of just wounded the entire series pretty much. I don't think we've seen them healthy since their introductions. After their introductions, they've just been in a permanent state of being fucking beat down. The destruction of the Kamunabi's Cloud Gouger squad was... It kind of told us as much that, to that end, death seems to be the finality within this series here. And if it wasn't, then Sojo and Kyora and Chihiro's dad and maybe many more would probably be able to be returned or be revived, right? It's kind of how it feels. So it kind of leaves the question of, is Chihiro really dead? And if he is, what happens next going forward in the story? This is a subject, by the way, that I would like to cover in a separate video, because I really like to dive in this, because depending on what Hokuzono does with this, it could be a completely different perspective change, or it could be the main characters taking a backseat and the side characters step in until the main character returns. But for the time being, it seems the story is moving forward without Chihiro, as the rest of the chapter sort of focuses on Yura, Hirohiku, and our nameless Hijaku member here, where Hirohiku laments on wanting to fight Chihiro further despite losing both arms. And honestly, I kind of agree with him. I was interested to see how and just what that fight was going to look like, with Hirohiku having no arms there, but he's getting his arms healed up by our nameless Hishaku member here. And regardless here, Jora mentions how Samura is coming to them, and they are now dealing with the enchanted blade bearer who controlled the war. And we see the word Owl appear on the panels here. And Owl is seemingly the name of an ability that allows Samura to see whomsoever he is tracking. Now, I theorized this in my Shonen Sunday stream, how the enchanted blades manifest a power that the user desires. It was something that I've seen now in a previous panel where Chihiro unlocked a new ability the exact same Sojo did. And we got a flashback of Kurashige talking about how the potential of these blades completely transform based on the user, essentially. And I think it's no coincidence that Chihiro's sword produces fish, the same fish that him and his dad bonded over, and the same fish that was shown just after his father's death. And I think it's also no coincidence that Samura's ability allows him, a blind man, to see, and add into the fact that an owl is the apex predator of its respective food chain and known for phenomenal eyesight in the dark, alongside its ability to swoop silently due to its feathers on its prey. And ironically, Samura just swooped in silently on all of us and his betrayal, and once again acted as the apex predator, quickly dispatching Chihiro without even breaking a sweat, which, if I'm honest, if you were out here thinking that this fight was going to be somewhat drawn out, or at least equal, I think you're out of your mind. You have to remember that this dude is a veteran. This dude understands his sword style, and has mastered a sword style in general, whereas Chihiro, in comparison, is just a brawler. So I believe these powers are sort of based on the user, or at the very least influenced them by them, perhaps influenced by building a bond with the blade itself, similar to how Chihiro called out a Cloud Gouger in the Rakuzaichi arc here, but we're treated here to a conversation between Samura and Yura here. Now, this conversation serves to sort of deliver us a lot of tension, but also a lot of insight into both of their goals and their partnership. And one thing I want to focus on here is Samura's pinky promise, which seems to act as sort of a nen contract, or a binding vow, a pact between them that is unbreakable and thus forces their partnership together. But the other thing here is this guy's narration of the conversation. He notes how Samura's conditions for this pact are Yura must reveal the identities of all 10 members of the Hishaku, reveals the identities of the Kamunabi insider who leaked Rokuhira's location, and reveals the whereabouts of the Enchanted Blades, and in exchange Samura will help kill all of the Enchanted Blade wielders. Now, these conditions imply that Samura has a lot of power within this partnership, but Yura explains how it's now time to play for keeps. And I want to point out that the perspective of Yura within these shots here shows him from a dominating perspective, from a camera looking up to him as an opposing figure, implying that he's in control of the situation, and honestly, I believe it. Samura may have the power here in terms of the Enchanted Blade, but he definitely is in control like he thinks he is, and we're left with the chapter closing out with Samura and Yura mentioning how in just one more week it will all be over, and we are shown Chihiro on the operating table, seemingly having been pronounced dead, with his eyes left open just as they were the moment someone had cut him down. Now, I've seen a lot of speculation about how this looks like Chihiro's eyes opening, or like he's not dead, there's this and that, but I'm very interested to see what you guys think in the comments below. But this chapter truly showed us just how quickly a story can twist and turn and leave us in a very unpredictable moment. And Hokuzono now has the opportunity to have a main character take a back seat here and give way to the sidecast to be characterized themselves further for the story here. Or should Hokuzono take an even crazier path here, he could opt to keep Chihiro out of play, completely dead, and maybe even permanently. But what does the story look like from that point going on forward? I have no idea, but I am extremely interested to see how it all plays out. But yeah, anyways, that's everything from me. If you've not already, consider liking and subscribing, and also consider supporting me on Patreon, as it helps keep the channel afloat, and it helps me create bigger and better videos. But yeah, that's everything from me. Much fucking love. Big fucking kisses. Peace.